The term Artist-Run Center is an umbrella name for nonprofit organizations that support the research, creation, production, exhibition, and circulation of living artistic culture.
L'idée, c'est vraiment qu'on ait des projets qui stimulent la réflexion, qui dérangent parfois, qui sont cutting edge, qu'on pourrait dire, mais qui nous laissent pas dans une position de confort.
Artist-run centers are small but mighty. Working with budgets that average under $250,000, they typically function with minimal staff. Their small nature tends to push them to the margins, where rent is more affordable, and their modest budgets, which prioritize giving direct support to artists, leave little room for marketing.
Les artistes étaient plus présents, disons, il y a quelques années. Là, c'est en train de changer un petit peu. Il y a beaucoup d'affluence, puis économiquement, ça marche bien, mais négativement, évidemment, parce qu'on a contribué à une certaine forme de gentrification du quartier.
Artist-run centers play critical roles throughout the full duration of an artist's career. Forming their early professional networks in university, artists often begin their careers in collective models with informal group shows or members' exhibitions. Once they've graduated, artists need experience. By volunteering for organizations, attending openings, taking workshops, borrowing equipment, joining committees, and staying informed, they make important professional connections. Emerging artists often produce their first professional exhibition in an artist-run center. Recognition from peers, curators, and critics paves the way for exhibitions, funding, and acquisition.
Being awarded Le Prix Powerhouse feels to be a great recognition of my work and actions, and huge encouragement to do work that feeds back into the community and to consider what ways art can create dialogue and connections with others through making and doing, as well as through giving visibility.
Throughout their career, artists often need access to services and resources to continue producing and exhibiting their work. These include equipment, technology, exhibition space, and research resources.
It's been great for me to be here for 6 weeks and use all the technology here and have the time to do many different kinds of experiments, and I was able to use the machine myself, so I can test out many different ideas, and there was of course a lot of failures and some successes also.
L'idée, c'est vraiment que les artistes puissent expérimenter dans un centre comme le nôtre. Donc, essayer des choses qu'ils ne pourraient pas essayer nulle part ailleurs, de faire des choses dans un contexte qui n'est pas commercial. Et puis ça, c'est quand même un luxe assez important qu'on peut leur offrir.
On est là autant pour aider à la conception, aider à la production, mais aussi pour nos membres, on aide à la diffusion de leurs œuvres. Donc, c'est ça, on est dans un soutien qui est assez complet et qui ne se concentre pas seulement sur une partie du processus créatif.
In the 1960s, artists were dissatisfied with available exhibition options and took matters into their own hands.
It's a space where individual artists can come and work at their own thing.
Museums were showing a limited and outdated breadth of media, with no space for other art forms such as performance or video. They also lacked representation by women, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and local artists. Independent artists formed collectives to share equipment and took advantage of cheap, abandoned industrial spaces to create alternative environments that allowed other forms of artistic creation to thrive.
In early 1973, he organized an international conference of video art and independent video that invited that network to come to Vancouver, and I was a volunteer. And then that collection of, I think, 120 titles or something became the collection that started the Video in a Library. Video was much more of a distribution and library, and the Western Front was much more of an art production house.
This year we brought in catastrophe art from Japan, an exhibition of the Italian artist Cavallini, and a display of the English group Reindeer Work. All three exhibitions were widely distributed to other centers in Canada. General Ideas showed the 1971 Miss General Idea pageant, which hadn't been shown in Canada since its inception for the AGO in 1971. We also made possible a Tibet carpet exhibition so that the Tibetans living in Alberta could stimulate interest in their crafts in order to establish for themselves an alternate means of support and a continuation of their culture.
Artists shared the belief that art could change the world, and the spaces they created broke down barriers to participation. By the 1980s, these ad hoc galleries became formalized and known as artist-run centers, creating a network of about 50 nonprofit organizations, supported with public funding to pay artists and staff.
We saw this as an opportunity to work within a space where infrastructure was not the issue. What was the issue was the payment of artist fees, and that principle was there right from the outset.
In the 1990s, despite funding cuts and increased bureaucracy, the network expanded to more than 100 organizations. But once again, exclusion within the wider art world was an issue. Artists responded by opening spaces devoted to people from minority communities. Limited funding opportunities and increasing rents largely halted the network's expansion in the 2000s. But as the internet became widespread, new voices began to emerge, and hybrid artist-run initiatives capitalized on nomadic models, interventions in the public realm, and online-based programming. This burst of new energy renewed well-established centers with the interests of each generation that moved through them. Today, artist-run centers represent a new form of small-scale institution, one that is open and capable of transformation, adaptation, interaction, and self-reflection.
We see the Artist-Run Center not as a new form of small-scale institution, but as a disruptor of institutions and institutional norms.
Thinking back on the 40-year history of the Whitewater Gallery in North Bay, artist curators Finn Leach and Clayton Windat had this to say: "It's easy to become cynical, especially at our age, but now is the time for optimism. We can make a difference and change the world after all. We're artist-run centers." Each center is rooted in a different community. This continues to make them relevant today and plays a key role in their programming choices and the services they offer.
We are a fully Indigenous arts organization. Most of our staff is Native. We're run by a board of directors, and most of them are Native. We have to have over 50% to qualify as an Indigenous organization, and also most of the board members are artists or working artists. And we actually program really crazy experimental ideas.
We're really lucky to have CARFAC, which is the Canadian Artists Representation group that really has helped since the 1960s to establish a set of fees that artists are paid.
To create work and sustain their practice, artists need training, space, funding, support, and feedback. While some organizations offer specialized media-specific services, most artist-run centers offer support at every step of the creative chain.
Si ils veulent être complètement autonomes, ils peuvent le faire. S'ils ont besoin de nous, on peut les guider à toutes les étapes. Mais surtout, le Centre Clark va leur offrir un contexte professionnel de diffusion, va leur offrir des outils de communication. Donc, c'est tout nous qui va se charger de toute la communication des expositions, du vernissage, de la traduction des textes, évidemment après ça, du programme de médiation.
Ce qui distingue aussi les centres d'artistes, c'est tout le volet vie associative, qui est plus ou moins fort d'un centre à l'autre aussi. Puis ils ont peut-être des approches moins rigides, puis des structures organisationnelles aussi qui permettent plus de légèreté ou de flexibilité.
We try to re-employ curators or workshop facilitators to come back again and engage in our activities. We also organize several times a year projections. We invite members to come and stick around after the screening to have discussion and give feedback to each other.
By directly serving artists and art workers from all walks of life, artist-run centers perform a critical function in the ecology of culture-based work. They create space for experimental practices to emerge and thrive without the pressures of a major institutional framework or commercial viability.
We have members that are most of the time artists that use our creative services. Other members may include participants of our residencies, participants of our services for the development of creative projects.
Pour devenir membre de l'atelier, le premier critère est d'être artiste. Donc c'est pas forcément artiste professionnel, ce qu'on dit artiste en voie de professionnalisation. C'est une catégorie assez large qui englobe donc des jeunes artistes de la relève, des artistes peut-être plus âgés mais qui souhaitent se réorienter ou développer leur pratique artistique.
Il faut toujours se re-questionner sur comment on fait bouger les choses pour pas qu'on tombe dans le statu quo.
Il y a des espèces de maillages qui se font et qui font en sorte que finalement la culture elle se renouvelle. C'est le sentiment que j'ai ici, c'est que c'est une culture qui est en évolution, qui s'enrichit des cultures d'ailleurs et d'ici.
One of the things that I feel affects me most about artist-run culture is that it is a place where artists' rights, contemporary art, and community action kind of all converge and come together.